KTN some shots were fired, but it is not clear if they were those of disgusted police officers who came across the bodies of their colleagues or it was another banditry attack. KTN's Dennis Onsarigo reports.
The killing fields of Suguta Valley now turned into an operation zone. Military bolts now march on the ground where 42 police officers were massacred. And military choppers providing cover from the air. Military personnel in their numbers have been moved into Baragoen, what the Department of Defense told KTN is to aid the local provincial administration and the local police in tracking down the armed raiders behind the Saturday dawn attack. Military spokesman Bogita Ongeri told KTN on phone the military presence on the ground is meant to move forward police operations in a region that has seen the killing of a district commissioner and a senior police officer in under 15 years. The Internal Security Ministry says the war on cattle rustlers and bandits has just begun.
The government is not after any community at all. We are after bandits, the criminals, you know, whether they come from whatever community, but you cannot blame or brand the whole community as bandits. We are looking for the criminal elements as individuals.
While the military presence was felt, police officers stumbled upon the remains of 4 police officers among the 5 missing officers. The badly decomposed remains were those of 3 administration police officers and that of a regular policeman.
This conflict, you cannot rule out a political angle in it. And we are investigating seriously any politician, and I said, be it a certain politician at whatever level, or be it an aspirant of whatever level.
The government move to rout out bandits from the expansive terrain has not been received well back in Nairobi.
But if you disarm the Turkana, the way you want to do it, I mean, this is what is now beginning. And you are not doing anything to the Samburus,
the Pokots,
and the Pokots,
and the Boranas.
Then it means you want to exterminate the Turkana population.
Why would ill-prepared security personnel be sent to a harsh area that is known to be notorious for cattle rustling, and where we have had fatal incidents before?
The members of parliament from Turkana County claim the locals are fleeing the area in fear of the arrival of Kenya Defence Forces. It is not clear how long the 600-strong police contingent and an unknown number of military personnel will be in Samburu, but for now it appears the war on banditry has just begun. Dennis Onsarigo, KTN Prime.
And that story leads us to the big question tonight. We're asking, is the military intervention the best solution to cattle rustling in Samburu? Is the military intervention the best solution to cattle rustling in Samburu? Please do send us your brief comments, beginning with a yes or no to our SMS number. It's 8040. We will be sampling some of your comments at the end of this live newscast. Well, with the rampant increase in population and the equally rampant decrease of resources such as land and livestock, pastoralism is no longer a viable way of life. The evidence is based on the increasingly deadly cattle raids that are taking place not only here in Kenya, but also in South Sudan and other African countries that have pastoralist communities. While the high price paid on cows and camels has cost the lives of hundreds of people over the years. KTN's Catherine Owanto now takes a look at the evolution of cattle rustling.
Cattle rustling is not unique to Kenya, but most, if not all, pastoralist communities in Africa. It's a deadly, long-standing tradition, deadly because of the value attached to cattle. In the last decade, it has become a major issue. Resources are dwindling. Population growth has reached an all-time high, especially in Kenya. Land is scarce and livestock numbers are reducing due to unpredictable seasons of famine and drought. And yet pastoralist communities are reluctant to adopt another lifestyle. They place so much value on livestock that it takes the place of money, and this mentality is what forms the basis for cattle rustling.
Sasa tutapata namna gani sasa? Michele yetu ile ilikuwa kidogo, ile tumekuwa nayo imeisha. Tutapata namna gani? Sisi zaidi tuko sasa mkononi. Kafu. Hatuna chochote sasa.
Traditionally, the reason a man and his friends armed themselves and prepared to steal another community's livestock was mainly cultural, such as for purposes of paying a bride price. If his family did not have enough cows, camels, goats or sheep to meet the demand of his in-laws, he would look for the deficit from neighboring communities.
Kama wataishiwa na risasi ndio saa zingine hizo mifugo zinaenda, lakini kama watakuwa na risasi watakabiliana vilivyo.
The issue of dowry among pastoralist communities has been commercialized, that the bride price has increased over time and yet livestock numbers have not. The other way cattle rustling has evolved is that those who are not looking to pay a bride price are just simply looking for any easy way to make money. This culture is deeply embedded in the pastoralist communities, and perhaps to maintain peace, the government may need to invest in communities such as the Turkana, Samburu, Pokot and Maasai to give them another alternative to pastoralism. This could be through education. Alternatively, the communities could be taught how to farm so that they do not rely entirely on their livestock. Catherine Omwando, KTN.
And indeed, that story still remains the subject of our big question. Please do send in your views. What is the solution to cattle rustling in that region? 8040 is the number. Now, 7 officers from Security Group Africa Limited and 2 administration police officers are among those who have been arrested and interrogated by the Criminal Investigations Department in connection with the theft of close to $1 million. That's approximately 85 million Kenya shillings, which was stolen from the Kenya Commercial Bank on the 6th of November. The cash destined for South Sudan went missing while on transit and has raised speculation as to who was behind that theft. KTN's Eric Njoka reports.
Late evening, November 6th, a Security Group vehicle exits the Kenya Commercial Bank in Nairobi's Moi Avenue, headed to the Security Group Limited offices on Mombasa Road. In its trunk, a consignment of $2.5 million, 300,000 euros and 100,000 British pounds, all destined for Juba, South Sudan. The cash was being transported to the office's storeroom for an overnight stay. The next day, at 11:30 a.m., the sacks containing the cash are taken to the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, ready for Juba. On arrival in South Sudan, the bags are received by the SPLM soldiers and officers from the Customs Department and quickly rushed to the KCB Juba branch. But on arrival, KCB notices an interference and several notes missing. According to the bank, $1 million could not be accounted for. Sources have disclosed to KTN that the bags were torn open and a few dollars plucked and the bags sealed. According to the Provincial Criminal Investigative Officer, Nicholas Kamwende, the bank never notified the police immediately they noticed the shortfall, but instead reported on the 10th of November, 3 days after the heist, raising more questions than answers, like what really happened when the bags were deposited and stored at the Security Group storeroom, and at what point were the bags torn, and how did they pass the airport unnoticed. Ironically, the PCIO claims $500,000 was stolen, while KCB maintains that $1 million was missing, raising more doubts on how such an amount could go missing in the full glare of the security officers. The bank has since refused to divulge any information on the heist, even as investigations continue. Eric Njoka, KTN Prime.
From the peculiar heist to a palatial home, and President Mwai Kibaki today commissioned the official residence of the Vice President of Kenya that has been under construction in Karen, Nairobi for the last 7 years. The residence, which sits on a 10-acre piece of land, gobbled up more than 400 million shillings. KTN's Joy Doreen Bira reports.
The decision to construct an official residence for the Vice President was mooted in 2003. 7 years down the road, this achievement has cost taxpayers up to 400 million Kenya shillings. This is the new home of the Vice President. A main house, an office block, guest house, domestic staff quarters, security houses, a swimming pool and manicured gardens are some of the facilities on this 10-acre piece of land in Karen, Nairobi's leafy suburb.
As we are all aware, there has not been an official residence for the Vice President. Indeed, the government has had to renovate the personal residences of those appointed to the position of Vice President, mainly to upgrade security.
The project was designed and implemented in 3 phases. The first phase involved the erection of a perimeter fence, 3 entrance gates, and guard houses, while the second phase involved the construction of the main house, an office block, a gazebo and swimming pool, security houses, and caretakers' residence.
The interior of the residence is built and designed to first world standards, or rather, what many would simply say befits a vice president, with Kalonzo Musyoka the first occupant of this facility.
It is good to recognize that my predecessors, the late Michael Kijana Wamalwa, then your vice president, your excellency, was actually supposed to be the first occupant of this place. This is a property, a national asset, owned 100% by the Kenyan taxpayer.
This completion has not been realized without controversy. Works on the residence were planned in 3 phases. Unfortunately, the contractor given the tender then did not perform to satisfaction, leading to a termination of the contract in 2009, whereafter a new contract was awarded to Italbuild Imports at a cost of 383 million Kenya shillings. The project was successfully completed in August this year. The official opening of the residence of the Vice President of the Republic of Kenya highlights one of the Vision 2030 goals, which is adequate infrastructure for the economy that will help the country attain middle-class status. However, the current Vice President, Kalonzo Musyoka, says that to convince him to reside at this residence is going to be one hard battle, as he only has 3 months to the general elections, for which he is a presidential hopeful. For KTN, I am Joy Doreen Bira.
Deputy Prime Minister Musalia Mudavadi today made one of his most daring statements since his departure from the ODM party this year. Mudavadi told a rally in Bungoma that any person interested in forming an alliance with him for the 2013 presidential race must be prepared to be his deputy, because he is definitely going for the presidency. Well, just a fortnight to the deadline for the filing of coalition agreements, Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto, however, say that they are determined to seek power on one ticket, despite speculation about difficulties in their alliance talks. KTN's Noah Otieno with the politics of the day.
The United Democratic Forum's presidential aspirant Musalia Mudavadi has thrown a spanner in the works just 2 days after his allies said they were nearly closing a deal with Vice President Kalonzo Musyoka on a pre-election pact. Mudavadi has dropped the bomb on Kalonzo and any other aspirant who may have lined up to negotiate with him.
Kwa UDF, sisi tumejitolea muhanga, tuende kwa wananchi, tuzungumze na wananchi kule tunaenda wanatuambia, jameni, mkizungumza kama UDF, mzungumuze, lakini one thing is constant. Kiti cha urais hapo msizungumuzie. Wewe bwana Mudavadi, hatutaki kusikia mambo mengine. Wewe enda paka mwisho, zungumuza kwa ile vitu vingine, wale wazungumuze, lakini kwa presidency you must contest and be on the ballot paper. Tunataka ushinde uwe rais wa 4 wa Jamhuri ya Kenya.
The Bungoma rally is part of Mudavadi's 5-day tour of the region, and Mudavadi and his allies went all out, telling their competitors the region was tired of supporting others for the top job.
Sasa wakati Kibaki anaenda nyumbani amerudia, ikiwa anafikiria ni lazima hiyo nafasi ije kwetu sisi, mimi sijui. Lakini ikiwa Kibaki hatafikiria na kusaidia kijana Mluya kuwa rais wa Kenya, na kuambia Kibaki akaa akijua kwamba wakati ataenda kwa Mwenyezi Mungu watakutana na Wamalo kijana, na katika nyumba ya Kibaki hatutakuja kutokezea kiongozi.
But Mudavadi's rivals for the presidency, Uhuru Kenyatta and URP's William Ruto, were in Narok to sell their budding union to their supporters. They put on a brave face despite growing speculation that their talks have hit a rough patch over how to share out positions.
Nataka niwatupie swali. Na swali langu, tukiwa tumesimama hapa na ndugu yangu, munaona vile tumesimama ikiwa sawa au munaona kuna kasoro? Mungependelea tuendelee kufanya kazi pamoja namna hiyo? Mungependelea tuendelee kufanya kazi namna hiyo?
Mheshimiwa Kenyatta akiwa rais niwe makamu yake ni sawa ama si sawa? Na mimi nikikuwa rais yeye akuwe makamu yangu ni sawa ama si sawa?
The two aspirants are seen as trying to gauge the mood of their supporters before concluding their pre-election pact.
Tutaongea mpaka tukubaliane. Tusisimame hapa tuseme tunajali. Kama Ruto ndio rais, sawa sawa, ni Mkenya, tuendelee na tufanye kazi. Kama Uhuru ni rais, sawa sawa, tuungane tuendelee tufanye kazi.
Noautino, KTN Prime.
Well, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission has moved to reassure Kenyans that it will hold the general election on the 4th of March as scheduled. IEBC Chair Ahmed Isaac Hassan admitted that there were forces working to see the election postponed, but said the commission would stick to the schedule.
Just a day after Eldoret North Member of Parliament William Ruto raised the alarm over an alleged plot to push the election from March to August, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission came out to announce that it was on course to conduct the general election on 4th of March as scheduled, in the face of allegations that unnamed influential foreign parties were working behind the scenes to protect their interests by ensuring the election was postponed. IEBC Chair Ahmed Isaac Hassan said only an amendment to the Constitution would allow the electoral body to alter the election date.
There's no legal framework upon which you can postpone the elections. The Court of Appeal, the highest court in the land, has already approved this date of 4th of March.
Questions have been raised as to whether the electoral body shall complete its preparations in time for a March election. The onset of the voter registration exercise that was initially scheduled to take place between June and July was pushed to Monday the 19th of November, a delay attributed to the late arrival of the biometric voter registration kits and the need to train over 30,000 polling clerks. The registration exercise is set to run for 30 days, after which the voter register will be open to the public for a month starting January.
We're trying to use the commission to say the commission is not prepared to hold the elections, so let's push it to August. And I told them, and we as a commission sat down together, look at our timetable, and said we must give Kenyans hope that this election will be held on 4th of March.
The Commission has announced that the 25,000 voter registration centres will be gazetted Friday before the registration exercise kicks off on Monday. The IEBC is targeting an estimated 18 million voters. Wilkes Tanyabwa, KTN Prime.
To the ongoing police vetting, and the National Police Service Commission today started vetting candidates for the position of Deputy Police Inspector General in charge of the Administration Police. 3 out of the 9 shortlisted candidates appeared before the Commission, and 6 more will be grilled Friday and Saturday. KTN's Asha Mwilu attended the interviews and filed this report.
The Thursday interviews for the 2 slots of Deputy Police Inspector General were dominated by shows of might, wit, and even some comic relief. And as the National Police Service Commission took the candidates through intense grilling, the questioning proved to be overwhelming for some of the interviewees.
We know now we can be able to capture that is a hot press baragoi, and that incident takes place during this time of the month, so that we place our officers on standby to prevent that occurrence from happening.
For other candidates, however, the vetting was a walk in the park, and they seemed prepared for any curveball thrown their way.
Whenever there is a problem, a conflict, an oppression things, I want you, I am requesting in front of them, you to give me permission to go and see what I can do without harming the other public.
And when complaints by his students at the AP Training College were brought up, Sharia had a well-planned comeback.
Somebody salute in another manner. Then, me, I don't want to fit you. Then, after I become a little bit annoyed because I want to teach the correct one, I use the word called. Sorry if I said and in front of the commission, I will reform if that is abusive language.
Even though his academic qualifications were not at par with those of the other shortlisted candidates, Sharia compensated with his sense of humor.
This is the commission that who's going to appoint or to refuse me. If they refuse me, my life will be in danger because...
AP officers Dalmas Otieno and Margaret Nyambura were also interviewed. 6 more candidates are yet to take the hot seat, with the commission left with 2 more days to wrap up the vetting. Ashamwilo, KTN, Nairobi.
Thank you for staying with KTN Prime. 4 girls in West Pokot County have been admitted to hospital after they were forced to undergo female genital mutilation. The 4 are part of 7 pupils in Senetor Primary School who got circumcised on Tuesday during a secret rite. Here are the details.
Low murmurs break an awkward silence in Senetor Village, Pokot County. Senior Sergeant Milton Chesebe and Chief Matthew Chesepar are talking with 2 of 5 parents arrested for forcefully circumcising their girls. Even if the girls had agreed to it, the practice has been banned for more than a decade in the country.
Walitairisha watoto 7, tukaenda tukashika suspect watatu ni wanafunzi ya shule, 4 ni drop-ups ile waliwacha shule. So niko na suspect 6 kwa custody yangu cell.
At Chepareria Hospital, the 4 girls who were rescued received counseling from Teresa Lokichu. She is a community leader here and she has dealt with numerous cases of FGM in the region. Despite the obvious risks, this county continues to conduct the practice openly. Data from the Kenya Demographic Health Survey estimates that 80 to 90% of the women in this county have undergone the practice. Police say there were 3 other girls who were sneaked out of the scene, although they are still looking for them and their parents. Kenyan laws have banned FGM, but the practice is still rampant and popular, especially within pastoral communities where girls may even demand to be circumcised on account of culture. Those who still practice FGM argue that it is as much a culture as naming a child after their grandparents. Edith Kimani for KTN.
A ray of hope is once again beaming in the tourist resort of Lamu following the successful mission of the Kenya Defence Forces in Kismayo, as over 50,000 visitors are expected to visit the town for a 3-day cultural festival that kicked off today. For the people of Lamu's old town whose livelihoods depend on tourism, the improved security situation is a boost to their local economy. The impact of the successful seizure of Kismayo by KDF is evident in the narrow streets of the island, where tourists walk freely and boat riders go ahead doing booming business. The old town has been in existence for over 700 years, which makes it rich in historical heritage. Lamu was named a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 2001, and since then the town has played host to the Lamu Cultural Festival. And on the other side of this break, your business news.
If we can fly the flag at half-mast for government ministers who die in the line of duty, why not for Kenyans who have served their country diligently?
Welcome. The business news is up next. Bonnie Tunya joins us. Bonnie, good evening. Jetlink has shut down its operations. KQ recorded dismal results. Just what's happening in the airline industry?
Well, a very good evening to you. And well, it's a sad story for Jetlink in Kenya at this time, where we are seeing more and more players getting into that market. But what is happening globally across the region is that for some reason airlines haven't been able to manage their costs well. we've seen internationally and both locally this trend, and so it really is a sad story for this to catch up with us right here in Kenya.
Is it the fuel? Is it air travel is far too expensive? What's happening?
Fuel is one of them. Fuel takes about 40% of all the cost, operating costs of an airline. So really it is part of the story that attributes this, but also then just the changing market trends and more of that stories.
I know you've got more details. Take it away.
Coming up now, the local airline Jetli Express Limited has suspended all flights with effect Friday. In a statement to newsrooms late Thursday, the firm said this was occasioned by their inability to meet their short-term obligations as an airline. The statement further said the airline was unable to access over $2 million worth of its ticket sales in South Sudan since January 2012. Among the costs of the airline indicated was not able to meet included fuel bill that represents 40% of its operational cost. The firm has, over the last 2 months, been in the news over flight delays and cancellations. It currently operates a number of domestic routes, including Kisumu, Mombasa, Dar es Salaam, and Juba in South Sudan. Despite the Central Bank of Kenya's lowering its benchmark lending rates to 11% in its latest review, commercial banks are still charging Kenyans highly to access loans. This is now raising concerns within the ranks of government and consumers on what exactly the banks are up to.
The debate on the wide gap between the interest earned on deposits and that paid on loans in Kenya has been running into years. Commercial banks, in their own wisdom, have continued to keep lending rates way up than what they pay on money kept with them by customers. However, the debate on the cost of borrowing in Kenya today seems to have fallen on deaf ears, as commercial banks, despite of obvious attempts by the industry regulator to keep the interest rate down, still keep them up. While Kenyans for the better part of last year had to contend with the high cost of borrowing due to runaway inflation and the shilling hitting rock bottom lows, this year has been slightly different.
Interest rates have gone down from that 5% now to 17%. But recently, Central Bank reduced a CB rate to 11%. So we expect banks also to follow suit and to be around 12%, 13% maximum.
As would have been expected, the CBK has over the last 6 months managed to lower its interest rate from a high of 19% to the current 11%. This, according to many analysts, is signal enough for banks to follow suit. However, out of the more than 40 commercial banks in the country, only a few have taken the bold steps to lower their interest rates. The results have been a stifled economy that cannot achieve its growth projection, as access to credit is a key factor to growth.
With adequate training and access to loans, local entrepreneurs would actually have a competitive edge over foreign investors due to their better comprehension of the domestic market.
While commercial banks keep close to their chests the mechanism of lowering their interest rates, direction from the Central Bank of Kenya has been said to be signal enough. Others that have chosen to lower the rates have issued a 2-month period effective date. It is imperative to note that the CBK Monetary Policies Committee currently meets once every 2 months to review the rates. Previously, the regulator has also complained of the slow rate of absorption of the benefits of a falling CBR to consumers. Joseph Bonyo, KTN Business Today.
Let's now move on to some positive news. Cooperative Bank of Kenya's pre-tax profit for the first 9 months of the year is up 33% to 7.49 billion shillings compared to 5.65 billion recorded for the same period in 2011, driven by growth in interest income. The bank's loan book increased by 11.3% to 118.4 billion from 106.4 billion in September, as Cooperative Bank's customer deposit increased to 156.8 billion compared to 137.7 billion in September 2011. 13.9% is the representation of that growth, whereas the total assets increased to 197.7 billion compared to 167.7 billion registered in the same period in 2011. Earning per share rose to 1.41 shillings to a shilling and 30 cents in the same period. Moving on, the sub-Saharan economy is poised to be bigger than the current levels of China and the United States in the next 4 decades. According to a new publication by Renaissance Capital, dubbed the fastest billion, the story behind Africa's economic revolution. Michael Karanja has that story. Just a day after shares of UAP Holdings Limited opened for purchase by the public, UAP says it is seeking to raise 750 million from the capital market through the public offering of its shares, which were approved by the Capital Markets Authority last week. UAP is floating 12.5 million ordinary shares at an offer price of 60 shillings per share. Now, earlier on, I spoke with UAP's Deputy Managing Director, Dominic Kiarie, on what the capital mobilization means for the company. Here is how it went. About 750 million shillings. What is this money for?
Thank you very much. Now, the 750 million shillings complement the 4.6 billion shillings that we raised at the beginning of the year from private equity investors.
Yes.
That would take the total capital to be raised to 5.4 billion shillings. Now, this money we're going to deploy to execute our regional expansion strategy. We are entering the Rwanda market this year. In fact, we've already received a license and begun operations. We are entering the DRC market as well. And also there's an acquisition that we're doing in Tanzania, which is in the last stages of being completed. So that is one of the ways we're going to use the funding. We're also going to deploy it into our real estate project. We have 3 flagship projects in the region. So as part of those development, we need to put in equity. So part of it will be used to put equity. And the balance will be used to beef up the balance sheet of our existing business and to just make sure that we're able to unlock surplus funds and ensure the business, very well capitalized. Yes.
What makes the region, the East African region, so attractive to UAP?
Okay. Now, we've witnessed very strong growth in the East Africa region. First and foremost, UAP as a group, the board took a decision that we cannot just play, as a Kenyan company. We have, for us to be relevant, we've got to be a Pan-African company. So we started our journey about 8 years ago by being a regional business. We entered into Uganda in 2004, South Sudan in 2005, and this year we've entered Rwanda, DRC, and Tanzania before the end of the year. So we need to be a regional business so we can be relevant to our clients.
That was a recording of our premier business daytime show, KTN Financial Markets Live. You can catch it every daytime at 2 p.m. Standard Chartered Bank of Kenya posted a 70% jump in 9 months pre-tax profit, the latest Kenyan bank to beat market expectations on growth in its loan portfolio. The bank, in a statement to Newsroom, said its profit rose to 9.24 billion shillings, while the net interest income rose 50% to 10.74 billion shillings from 7.13 billion shillings in a year earlier. Despite the current high interest rate regime by the commercial bank, Stanchart defied the odds with the interest income from the loans and advances rising 82.5% to 11.4 billion shillings in the 9 months to the end of September. Stanchart on Tuesday raised 8.3 billion shillings through a rights issue to fund the growth and support its balance sheet in the expansion project. And now time for the money market, coming up next in the Financial Markets Review. And that's all for business. My name is Boni Tunya. Have yourself a good night.
To matters athletics now, the inaugural Athletics Kenyan Athlete Seminar ended in Eldoret today with the participants admitting that it was an eye-opener. 2012 London Marathon winner Mary Keitany says those who attended the seminar are more knowledgeable on taxation matters, among others.
Ibrahim Hussein, the technical director at the IAAF office in Nairobi, was among the officials invited to guide the Kenyan athletes attending a 3-day seminar in Eldoret. Hussein, a former Boston Marathon winner, took the athletes through coaching techniques.
As a coach, if he's a very keen coach, he should be able to tell you, no, please, you don't wear these shoes. Chukua $300, $500 is very expensive, but buy some attractive but friendly shoes to your feet.
After the close of the seminar, athletes admitted that they have learned more than they expected.
Maneno ya immigration, maneno ya doping control, na insurance.
We have learned a lot of things, not only about Gare, but also about investment.
Joshua Kemboi, KTN Sports Today.
Registration exercise for the 6th CAS Marathon will be closed tomorrow ahead of the event on Sunday. The organizers have also revealed that the route is ready and the security arrangements have been finalized.
Raw and tested talent will be up against a galaxy of experienced elite runners on the road to Eldoret from Kapsabet during the 6th edition of the annual CAS Marathon this Sunday. The organizers are in a race against time to ensure the preparations are complete with at least 24 hours to spare before thousands of runners take to the road.
I went to see the road. The road is in good condition, and I hope that the weather also is very good. You can see this time we still have some rains, so it will be good for the marathoners.
This year, the race plans to attract more than 3,000 runners from Kenya, Uganda, and Ethiopia, and the final figures are expected shortly after the close of registration exercise on Friday evening.
They should be ready to register themselves for this race, because when we close, we will not allow any athlete to register, because we will need to have the start list on time and know who is running this year.
At the same time, the organizers and the Kenya police have assured of sufficient security arrangements to cater for thousands of spectators, runners, and the general public that will turn out for the event. Sadiq Shaban, KTN.
Still on matters athletics, former world marathon record holder Paul Tergat has welcomed a decision by the National Olympics Committee of Kenya to second him to take over the Kipchoge Keino's position at the IOC. Tergat was unsuccessful 4 years ago. NOC's General Assembly, which sat in Nairobi on Wednesday, gave Tergat the green light to seek election as an IOC member.
It's a big honor for me. It is some not only to me, but also to the sports fraternity and also to the country at large. I'm looking in terms of once being nominated fully and being in the IOC, I will see how best to be able to boost the agenda of the country, because I believe that this country, we have such a huge talent in terms of other sports that we have in the country, that we want to make sure that we nurture them so that we can be able to produce more sportsmen.